Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 387. Thank you guys for joining in. I am your host, Nathan Springer. We're here on the 31st of the last day of January. Oh my. What a month January has been. What a month it has been already. And I know some people talking about the 65 days of January, but was January really that long? What? Yes, Dave, you're right. Was January really that long? I don't think so, man. January was a decent length of time. Woy Nisi, is that the Derek Bob guys, that guy that posts all those retro videos and stuff? Hey, good content, man. Writing the nostalgias. Blessed good night, Ronaldo Thorne over on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in. So thank you for tuning in. All right. As per usual, once you're inside, make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok. That's how you hit that like button over there. And however you hit the like button over on Facebook, you be sure to do just that, so the algorithm knows to send out the notification to some more people. That's what the like button is really for. And you can hit it as many times as you like over on TikTok. Get fed up hitting that like button. We really need to get those likes up. Yeah. All right. So let's dive into the first story. What we're talking about today, this evening. I was going to talk about this since last night, but you know, unforeseen circumstances. Last night we had no live, but we're here tonight. And I was looking at the different strategies the PNM and the UNC seem to be going at with the crime situation here in Trinidad and Tobago. They do seem to have a bit of a shade of a difference in how they look to tackle the crime situation, at least the public narrative that they put out for it. And I have a feeling that at the present moment, the narrative that the UNC is attempting to write maybe a more poignant one, maybe one that packs a better punch than the one the PNM is attempting to go with, especially looking at the direction of the present global politics. So hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok. I'm watching the likes, they aren't climbing as fast. Double tap that screen. Let's go in. Abraham tells PM, I will not shut up on crime. Retired police superintendent Johnny Abraham has slammed the prime minister for chastising him for talking about crime and criticizing the leadership of the police service. He also welcomed proposals by opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar to make firearm users' licenses available to more people, including police officers, and stand your ground laws. Now, the opposition is going around having these meetings. Scrap Iron dealership had a crime meeting in Tobago and few Tobagonians showed up. If they had 5 Tobagonians, they had plenty. Well, I don't know what to say about that necessarily. I don't know the outlook of the Scrap Iron guys' own. I remember they had one in Enterprise, I believe, and it was well attended. It didn't seem overtly political, but this is pretty political. This is Johnny Abraham speaking basically on a political platform. The UNC is hosting the crime talks here, and the fact that they have a popular retired police senior officer on their platform speaking here. And, you know, Dr. Rowley suggests that, you know, Johnny has some negative things in his history as pertaining to the crime situation and his history as a police officer. But if you hear the talk on the ground very often, what people say about Johnny, many of the people within the Central District were favorable of him. If there was talk about him involved in other activities, they would be like, well, he might be, but at least he keeping the crime down in Central. If you're going in a populist direction, a direction where you're going to try to get the popular sentiment of the people, that seems to be a winning strategy. And for the Prime Minister to criticize someone like that, I don't think it's necessarily wise on his part. Hunter, farmer, psychologist at UNC crime talks. Hunter's Search and Rescue Team Commander Shamsuddin Ayube has said the group developed a draft plan to fight crime 2 years ago. He was one of the people there. There was a psychologist. There was an agripreneur. Donnie Rogers said crime was having a negative impact on agriculture. Johnny seems to only want to free up FULs for police to carry home the gun. I don't know if that's the case, because if he's supporting Kamala Prasad Bissessa's, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessa's claim for that, she's not only saying that for the police. Johnny kept a particular segment of Central Safe Militant Rockstar says, but here's the thing. I've heard that talk before, Militant Rockstar. I am a Centralian, after all, and I was a Centralian when Johnny was doing his thing back then. But some of the allegations, it is alleged by some that some businessmen may have had their contacts clean with Mr. Johnny, and when they make a call, he responds, and he responds clearly. Now, you could not like that. You could say that, okay, he has his favoring in a certain segment. But at least for a certain segment, life was more peaceful. And if that certain segment was the business community, the safety of the business community trickles down. That's not only something that the business community benefits with. I'm not necessarily saying that as a bonus in his court, but a statement on public perception. Johnny area hosted two of the most notorious crime spots, especially during... Oh, Facebook is having a bit of problems there with the connection. Especially during the Rasta/Muslim wars. Yes. There are serious crime spots in Central still. But that doesn't negate the point still. There have been serious crime spots in Central before. There are serious crime spots still, before and after Johnny's tenure. So, there being crime hotspots in the area isn't a stain on him necessarily. It's a fact of the situation. You could look and say now, though, how did he manage the crime spots versus the people before and the people after? Because that's what some people are concerned about. And you see, to me, wow, Facebook Live had to end on that note. Let's see if we could kickstart that again for Facebook. Sometimes these do their own thing. Yeah. Relying on trickle-down economics is a very PNM mindset, I could agree with what you're saying there. Nonetheless, it's not like his competition before and after were keeping the crime down in Central in those areas. It's not like there was an alternative that helped the poor people, The alternative was there that kept the crime down for the poor people too. No. Before, the crime was up for everyone. After, the crime was up for everyone. So, ask yourself this. If it's possible to get a police service that make sure there are no robberies in the groceries, they aren't too concerned about the poor people. But no robberies in the groceries. What would you deem of that? What would your take on that be? Mark is probably still shaking from going before Congress today. Who, Mark Zuckerberg? I don't think those things bother them at all. Well, it has to be created at least for people to get it. I'm just saying the way people talk like Johnny is the answer. Just like Gary, I disagree. Me too, just by the way, I'm not saying that these guys are the answer. I am talking about political strategy. And why this strategy of incorporating these guys works as a populist strategy, and the strategy of the PNM of distancing themselves from these guys looks like an elitist strategy. Because for a country like Trinidad, here's where it's at in Trinidad. For a country like Trinidad, it feels like it would make more sense you have someone who is able to manage. Well, it looks like Facebook is done there. It seems it most people may think that you prefer someone who is able to manage the crime situation more than just try to wrestle it. Even if it is that they talk to certain community leaders, but if the talks are actually effective, if it is that they have the borough's reputation and they're wiping out some, but the violence is down, people would lean towards that, like it or not. It's like, it's similar to some of the gun control arguments to me, where some people seem like they're arguing about utopia, but we don't have utopia. People say, okay, we cannot allow legal gun ownership for regular citizens because it will cause violence in the society. There's already violence in the society. It's not like we're comparing it to some perfect society out there. So, okay, you're saying that these men may not be the best men out there. Do we have the best people in charge right now? Did you listen to the interview that our police commissioner gave to the senators? All in all, you can't please a Trini because there would be some other complaints on the flip side. I'm not talking about pleasing a Trini either. I'm talking political strategy and what would work for a wider range of people. Of course, there'll be complaints on either side. I'm sure in El Salvador right now, there are people complaining too. Ilhan Omar, as I spoke about in the United States, is complaining about El Salvadorian judicial practices and the democracy in El Salvador, because the El Salvadorian president decided that he's going to jail all the criminals. And it worked. And there are still people complaining, so I'm not surprised about that. Would we be the first first in the Caribbean to ease access for citizens bearing arms? I believe we will, yes, if we were to do that. I'm not sure if we will do that, though. To be very honest with you, I'm not even sure if Mrs. Prasad Bisesa comes into power, if she would actually do that. Or if this is more of a just red meat for the supporters business. And again, why populism and that strategy works. Why populism and this strategy works. Agripreneur Donny Rogers, who was at the crime talk, said crime was having a negative impact on agriculture. He was concerned that if crime continues to increase, a situation could be reached where no one will want to get involved in farming. From 2017 to 2022, Rogers continued, there was a 50 to 100% increase in predial larceny. He said last year 125 dairy cows were stolen. Not one was recovered. No one was held. Crime talks are election gimmicks. Well, what isn't election gimmicks in that case? Positive radiation. In that case. And understand why these things work so much. There are many people, and the reality is, many PNM supporters whose base is built around either the professional class, the laptop class, or government workers. Many of them aren't farmers. Many of them aren't entrepreneurs. Many of them don't face this. They don't understand that 100% increase in predial larceny is a scary thing. And when you as a PNM supporter jump on the PNM bandwagon and say that it's just political talk the UNC throwing out there, not understanding people's livelihoods are being lost. 125 dairy cows were stolen, not one was recovered, and no one was arrested. I don't think any of them are truly interested in crime reduction. I think positive radiation, I think that's one of the most ridiculous statements I've heard. No offense meant personally to you. But of course they are interested in reducing crime. Of course. It's just there are other considerations to balance with it. But of course, I don't think Dr. Rowley wants 600 murders in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't think so, honestly. I don't think Kamala Prasad Bisasa would want that either. It's just that with the other political considerations they would have to balance, would they be able to do the steps that may be necessary to prevent that 600 murders that they don't want, but would they be able to do that? But yes, back to the populist train. Many people on Paul Duncan, many people on the establishment side, on the elite side, on the government workers side, on the laptop class side, on the managerial class side, on the HR department side class, they sometimes are lost on these populist messages. They don't understand that somebody could vote only based on their one dairy cow that was stolen and was not recovered. Party financiers profit from crime directly or indirectly. Party financiers aren't one group. There are party financiers for both parties who would be losing money because of crime too. So, I mean, I know it's interesting to think that all politics is funded by criminals behind dark doors, but no, some of them are normal business people paying money to their favored party, and they don't get benefit from crime. Greetings, sir. What would you suggest that might curb crime? I have stated I don't believe this to be true because UNC votes or strongholds almost never sway. What do you mean? What isn't true because the UNC strongholds almost never sway? That people would vote differently based on simple things? Who owns the security companies? If an investigation into these laptop thefts may reveal some sinister organized crime, I wouldn't doubt that militant rockstar. I'm not talking about the base of the parties necessarily. UNC's base is not enough for them to win an election. They don't win elections with their base. And yes, their base is the most solid thing in Trinidad and Tobago. Nothing is more solid than the UNC base, granted. But there is a segment of people in the country significant enough to sway elections that would either not vote or vote one side or the other. And those votes can be swayed many times by the simplest things. I know some people, one little drain, and that's enough. Who owns the funeral agencies, the CCTV companies? Do you think all the CCTV company owners and funeral agencies and security companies are financing political parties with the intention of the political parties turning a blind eye to crime so that crime goes up so that they get more money? Really? How do you think those chain of events go? So XYZ security company is making good money. They donate to PNM and they put in a request, but they are benefiting from crime. Yes, they are. I am not saying they aren't benefiting from crime, but I am saying that many companies also lose from crime. There are many groceries. There are. Granted, I don't think I should have to explain this. But the point I'm making here, I missed the question. My solutions on curbing crime. One, I do believe arming the society is going to put a serious dent, especially on home invasions and that style of crime. The style of crime where a carload of men from the Port of Spain suburbs drive across Trinidad to Central and South Trinidad to terrorize people, and don't act like we don't know that's what happens, because every time they're caught, you find out where they live. That kind of crime, I think that disappears with arming the society more. One, I think we need a police commissioner, probably. And I don't know how many people share this view. Maybe the best idea in our police we had for a very long time was Gibbs and Iwatsky. And unfortunately, they weren't able to stay. You see how they target the grocery store owner in Mausika? No, I didn't see that. So, I think an exterior leadership to the police service in order to clean it up is necessary. And I think in order to curb crime in Trinidad and Tobago, the first step is cleaning up the police service. There are too many criminals with too many police friends. Odd theory, if we had more of the citizenry owning property, guns would be more accessible. Do you think if you own property, you get a gun? Because Tanti Erla was saying 25,000 applicants a year, and she approved 100. Do you think that 100 were the only 100 property owners in that list of 25,000? I don't think it's a matter of property. That exterior agency have to be from foreign. And I could agree with that. Like, I'm telling you, especially in hindsight, I think the Gibbs and Iwatsky idea may have been the best idea. And as they did, not just one. Don't bring one lone ranger and put him at the top there, and he has to get staff from all of the other people who hate his guts. Maybe hire a contingent of 5. And it might seem colonial to some. I know for sure a lot of police are going to kick brass. The TTPSSW A or whatever they name, they are going to be mad. But I think that might be necessary to actually fix the police service. And what about personal accountability, like in being an enabler or accomplice, etc.? Well, if you're talking about people doing their individual part, well, that's what I attempt to do every night, and talking to people and changing the culture. But I also understand that it's not magic like that. And we could beg people to change their attitudes and get personal accountability how much they want. But that's not how it really works. And the point I always make to this, yes, cultural change would make a big difference in the crime situation in Trinidad if our culture elevates itself, if we raise above the influence and get better at everything, we will get better at crime. True. However, there have been decrepit, degenerate cultures that have been overseen by serious law enforcement, and because of that, there was low crime. So the culture doesn't even need to improve. A lot of law-abiding citizens have procured illegal guns to keep their family and interests safe, White Leather says. Well, White Leather, there's some irony in that statement, because in terms of, by definition, technical definition here, if you acquire an illegal firearm, then by very definition, you are not a law-abiding citizen. But I understand exactly what you mean. People with no intention to harm others acquire illegal weapons for self-protection. And that's very understandable. That's very understandable. As the saying goes, it's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And I could understand why people would say that. I will not make that recommendation, though, but I understand why people would say that. And here's the problem with illegal guns, though, and some people using that as the solution. On the government side, that's a blemish on the government side. You are forcing otherwise law-abiding citizens into becoming criminals. On the government side, what you are doing also is you are allowing law-abiding citizens to make criminal connections, because where do you acquire an illegal firearm? From a criminal. Training people has fed too much to give them access to guns. I totally disagree with that, but I understand the sentiment. To me, that illegal gun acquisition thing is similar to the marijuana, where, okay, you decriminalized it, but then you still have laws that make it difficult to procure. So then you end up with anyone who wants to go and procure their herbs, they're going to deal with a criminal. Jacques says, right, plus we are naturally aggressive. I am sure colonial powers would have used that excuse to make sure that their slaves and those they oversaw never were able to get their own weapons to protect themselves. This population is just so naturally aggressive. It sounds like something Joe Biden said about the Negras. Back in the 90s, they are just so naturally aggressive. There was that melanin, it brings out an aggression in those people. For goodness sakes, we cannot allow them to have weapons. These melanated, aggressive people out there. No, it's only the Caucasites are able to handle their aggression to hold on to the weapons. And strange enough, all of these naturally aggressive people, we have police who are the more aggressive of the naturally aggressive. Like if you were to take a survey of Trinidad, the general Trini versus the average Trini police, what do you think is more aggressive, the average Trini or the average Trini police? And you are saying you would prefer a society where only those guys have the guns. But we are take for example road rage. I'm not denying there is aggression. Do you know the stats of gun crime in the US versus Australia? Not offhand, but I also know that those stats are silly to compare because Australia is, for the most part, a homogeneous country with a massive landmass and very, very few people. So the density of people is very low also. Now, if you want to compare United States for United States and you want to look at the US, because the US is a very good thing to look at in between. Because it's like individual little countries doing their own little experiments. Look at states that have lax gun laws versus states with strict gun laws. You could look at Illinois and then look at a state right next to it, Idaho or something, with lax gun laws, and then see the difference. They were close before gun control in Australia. That is actually not true. Go read those stats again. That's another one. I know exactly what you're talking about. The gun buyback in Australia, and after the gun buyback, it decreased. No, it did not. It was a natural. It was a declining violent crime rate that happened globally, and they did not have a more sharp decline than they had occurring before. As I said, those stats don't work. Don't try to compare apples to oranges. They are apples to apples inside the United States. Why would you leave two states in the United States and go compare Australia that has one person for every 300,000 kilometers or something like that? That's not a useful comparison. If you want to compare like for like, look at states within the United States. And by the way, it's working right now. Go look if you like to have an honest view on gun control. Go look. There's a recent study because there was something like 25 states in the United States that within the last 10 years legalized open carry. Go look at the recent study and the effect that had in those states. You could compare state for state. A state when they had strict gun laws and a state when they say basically everybody in the state could have a gun anytime they want, anywhere they want, anyhow they want. And see if it exploded into violence on every corner. In our society, criminally minded, violent people already are armed. I don't know how many of you live in communities that aren't, the very epitome of upper middle class. Your community has a little shade to it. Think of all these shady characters in your community. And they have guns already? all the iffy characters in your, I could tell you, probably within a 5 square mile of me, anybody who I am worried about if they're stable in the head, I think they already have a gun. Yes, Jacques, I do think it does. And that's why I do agree with the statement that an armed society is a polite society. Yes, RL, yes. And that's why I do agree with that statement, an armed society is a polite society. However, let's not get overly sidetracked. Kamla, crime talks for UNC to listen, not talk. Opposition leader Kamla Prasad-Visasa has said the anti-crime town hall meetings, which the UNC is hosting, are not for the party to tell the public its plans to fight crime. She made this comment when she addressed the UNC's second anti-crime town hall meeting at Naparima College. There are some who are of the view that we, meaning my MPs, my senators, and myself, that we should come and talk down to you, that we should come and tell you our plans. But Prasad-Visasa said this is not the purpose of the meeting. That, she said, is for the UNC to get feedback from ordinary citizens and qualified people about how to deal with crime. Together, we can take all of these suggestions and build on defense strategies and solutions to fight crime. And listen, I am telling y'all could take this as my initial statement on it. This direction that the UNC is heading in is an effective direction. If you are a PNM faithful and you want to stick your head in the sand looking at that, do so at your own peril. But the idea that they're going around, trying to get the regular man on the street to talk about crime is probably the most primary situation on Trinidad and citizens of Trinidad and Tobago's minds. But the same ground folks had a problem with the PM asking for the opposition help. Well, here's the thing in this, Jacques. The talks that they are doing right now, they are juxtaposing it to the talks that were proposed between the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. Prasad-Visasa added that the UNC was holding these meetings after it failed to reach agreement with the government about bipartisan talks to deal with crime. In an October 12th letter, the Prime Minister wrote to Prasad-Visasa about scheduling those bipartisan talks. Dr. Rowley proposed several pieces of anti-crime legislation for discussion. We know that the meeting fell apart after they discussed about who was going to be there and who wasn't going to be there. And the UNC is saying, okay, the PNM doesn't want to meet to talk about crime. So we will meet with you, the people, and hear your view of how to deal with crime. The issue with UNC idea for crime talks, you're going to get personal solutions, not for country. You could say that if you wish, militant rockstar, but everyone wants a personal solution for crime. And if we could get 1.3 million personal solutions, they're going to like it. Rowley had all the answers when he was in opposition. Now Kamla has the answers in opposition. Well, that's how opposition goes, doesn't it? Yes, Trini Hotep, extremely populist. Extremely populist. And let's juxtapose this. PM meets US military, CIA. It gets votes but no real solutions. I'm not sure about that, because what solutions are we getting right now with the different method? As I was saying, it's like you're saying, well, those solutions aren't going to produce real change. Are we getting the real change we want now? Is the present one working? If not, then what are we talking about real solutions? What are the real solutions, and who has them? But yes, the Prime Minister held high-level security meetings with U.S. military officials at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., and with the Central Intelligence Agency on Monday. A statement from the Office of the Prime Minister on Tuesday said Dr. Rowley's engagements at the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense, including meetings with the U.S. Deputy Under-Secretary of Defense Melissa Dalton, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Western Hemisphere Daniel Erickson, and other senior U.S. military officers. The discussions focused on a number of areas, including defense cooperation, border security, partnership with the Delaware National Guard, cyber defense and cyber security, as well as regional maritime interdiction. I agree, Reeve. I agree. I'm not saying I disagree. Sometimes nothing is better than something. But that's a hard sell. Especially when we're talking about crime. Especially when we're talking about crime. If the crime situation is getting worse, to tell me nothing is better than something is telling me that my only hope is to leave the crime situation to continue worsening. You understand why that would be a very hard sell? The only sell that works there is something else that is better than this something. You can't say nothing is better than the something in a crime situation like this. You have to make the alternative proposal. The US does not have their own crime problems. Well, something people sometimes don't understand about the US is huge. The US is the United States. Each state is technically supposed to be governed technically like as it were its own country. So there are some states with serious crime problems and some states without. There are some areas of some states with serious crime problems, while there are some areas of the same state without. So there's that. Wait, did the crime symposium have the regular common citizen in there? No. Which crime symposium are you talking about? The UNCs? Yes, they did. If you're talking about the governments with the CARICOM crime symposium, no, it didn't. And neither does this. And it starts to feel that the PNM is taking the opposite route to the UNC. It starts to feel like the PNM is taking the opposite route. While the UNC is going to the people and the roots, the PNM is going to the largest, most powerful organizations and groups in the world and attempting to get them to solve some of the issues. Now, I'm not saying that one isn't needed, but you could understand why populism works for the man on the ground so well. When people are getting held up in their homes on a daily basis, it really doesn't do much for you. It feels disconnected. What is the CIA going to do about the number gangs running into people's homes or shooting out each other on the roads? And something strange that I saw inside of this. Partnership with the Delaware National Guard. I was like, Delaware? Like, what's this? Why would we have a partnership with the Delaware National Guard? Like, what does Delaware have that is similar to Trinidad and Tobago that, we could really have some correspondence? And so, I did a little digging and just a quick preview of some of that. And it's from a partnership program. Yes, the state of Delaware, as in Joe Biden's home state. And it's a partnership program where state national guards in the United States are partnered with different countries all over the world. And what would you know? Trinidad and Tobago's national security won an award. We won an award in this partnership. On April 27, this is from the year 2023. On April 27, the Adjutant General of the Delaware National Guard, Major General Michael Berry, presented the 2021 inaugural National Guard's State Partnership Program Partnership of the Year Award to Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines. Mr. Hines was out there collecting awards on behalf of our National Security Ministry. The DNG and the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force was selected for the award out of 93 SPPs worldwide as part of the United States Southern Command. The DNG has been partnered with Trinidad and Tobago since 2004 through the SPP, which is a U.S. Department of Defense Security Cooperation program. Now, here's where things get very interesting for me. The award criteria, because I wanted to know, how could we qualify for any award in national security on any grounds? Like, what would be the grounds that we qualify for any kind of award? The award criteria are based on key leader and subject matter expert engagements. Words like that already tell you this is against the general populace sentiment. Dealing with the expert engagements only, whole of government and society interactions and academic exchanges, including women, peace, and security principles. What women, peace, and security principles are we winning in? And for those of us who know how the UN and the globalists talk, this sounds very much like that kind of tenor. And then, is it any surprise that we now have opened our very own Women, Peace and Security Advisory Group appointed? Members of the newly minted Women, Peace and Security Advisory Group received their instruments of appointment on Tuesday at the ministry's head office in St. Clair. This was from January of this month. The advisory group is responsible for the development of the first Women, Peace and Security National Action Plan for Trinidad and Tobago. The advisory group is expected to submit a national action plan 6 months after their first meeting. So the solution that the PNM is finding isn't a solution that comes from the man on the ground. This isn't Johnny Abraham telling them about women, peace and security. This is the Delaware National Guard. And in case you needed reassurance, yes, this Women, Peace and Security initiative comes from the United Nations originally. And that's our PNM plan to deal with crime. Take the globalists' advice. I'm sure this whole Women, Peace and Security Advisory Group is going to cost us millions of dollars. And it's based, let's see what it's based on. What is Women, Peace and Security? It is a policy framework that recognizes that peace and security is more sustainable when women are equal partners in the prevention of violent conflict, the delivery of relief and recovery efforts, and in the forging of lasting peace. So, in other words, J. King, what rubbish you telling me? What rubbish you telling me here? We have tried everything. Have we tried everything? Really? So our new solution is to take the modern woke nonsense that comes vomiting out of the United Nations to try and bring in quotas inside of our protective services, because that's what that is talking about. They want to make sure that women are equal partners in the prevention of violent conflict, the delivery of relief and recovery efforts, and in the forging of lasting peace. What do you think they mean when they say they want to make sure women are equal partners in that? 50-50 women police? And now, you know what strikes me as very interesting as we are on this topic? We have a woman commissioner right now. The bacchanal that is brewing with the promotions, has allegations that female officers were promoted ahead of their male counterparts with higher grades. That's part of the talk coming out. Now you have to wonder, if we are winning an award from the folks in this initiative, if we are winning an award for this initiative, what changes are our government, or what changes are our government making to stand with this? That's my question. And here's the reason for that question too. As Reeve was talking about, where I regularly see sometimes nothing is better than something. But when you're dealing with crime, there are some things that work for crime and there are some things that don't. The modernist woke principles for dealing with crime don't work. Look, we were talking about the United States. Look at the United States. Look at the states that hold on to that kind of, let's get equity, diversity, and inclusion inside of crime solving and crime fighting, and see how that works out for them. It doesn't. I'm sorry, but I don't believe women are the secret to ending gang violence in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't believe it. I don't believe mothers are the solution to ending gang violence in Trinidad and Tobago. That way people wouldn't feel discriminated against, making the women do much better at their jobs. I don't understand how that does that at all. Now people would feel discriminated against. If a woman isn't qualified for a position, and she gets that position, how does that make her less discriminated? That increases discrimination. The thing that's so interesting to me with a lot of this, statistically, we know one of the primary factors involved in young violent males, criminally minded males, are specifically single mother homes. That seems to signal, when you have a criminal problem with young men in your society, it's more of a masculinity issue. But no, we head in the direction that we are going to pump money into some woman and gender something something. Charmin, I've said this a million times. I've said this many times. Many, 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 many times. I could tell you what my solution is not. Following the United Nations and their broken nonsense. That's what my solution is not. I would prefer give everyone in Trinidad a weapon before you follow the United Nations and their nonsense. Folly. But that's where we won an award. We're winning awards. We're winning awards there. Yay for equity. Yay for Trinidad and Tobago. All right, people. That's all I have for now. Any further questions or comments before I dive out? The young violent male becomes violent because they feel extricated and misunderstood. I disagree. That's probably part of the reason, but that's not the only reason. The young violent male becomes violent because he has a lack of impulse control. He has an inability to delay gratification. Hey, goddess. Hey, cuz. Yes, I know who it is now. Hi. Big cousin, how much she ever hears when Mini Mindful get in politics, I'm sure she go have all the answers, but of course she will. But yeah, the young male, it's not about they feel extricated and misunderstood. That's the answer you get, as I said, and I disagree with it. But that's the answer you get when you put a lot of mothers to find the solution. If you put mothers to solve the issue with these violent young boys, the mothers are going to come back and say that the boys are extricated and misunderstood. If you put daddies will say they lack discipline. They are unable to delay gratification. They lack impulse control. And the thing is, solving the impulse control, allowing them to be able to delay gratification, increasing discipline would solve the whole worry about them being extricated and misunderstood. Discipline can only work if love is... What is even that? Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Discipline could only work if love is present. What do you mean by that exactly? I don't even understand what that is supposed to mean. Because you could discipline someone into doing something and hate their guts, but you could force them to be disciplined enough to carry out certain actions. So,
let me jump in here quick. Just a point that really touched me. So I grew up single mother. And there's a guy I was working with for a while, senior fire officer in the Tobago space, and he told me something that impacted me. He said when young men grow out and male figure, they tend to find it very easy to challenge and to test authority. And I begin to look at my own life and colleagues who I know grew up single mother. And it's truth. When you grow up in a female-dominated environment, you will always have a tendency to challenge authority, especially female authority. And I had to reconfigure the way I think and the way I approach because of it. So saying it's love on an all-female part is flawed. Sometimes they need to have these guys on the construction site to get accustomed taking talks and to be around industrial language. So that I understand your philosophy, but that's so for kind of vibes, they don't make no kind of sense. I want them to launch an all-female task force and send them into the crime hotspots with absolutely no male intervention. And then I want to see what the results would be.
Exactly. What you notice, positive radiation. A lot of those violent boys, people talk about, they need to be able to express their emotions more. It's the toxic masculinity that forces them to suppress their emotion. The problem is them emotional boys. When you have an emotionally incontinent man, a man whose emotions always just leaks out, a man whose emotions just leaks out, that is the man who is going to be violent because he cannot control his emotions. You don't want those guys. And you could go look at these studies if you think I'm just making that up. Go look at these studies and see what kind of parenting, which gendered parenting, increases that emotional stability, that stoicism in men. That's why I think, especially for men, being stoic is so important. It keeps you out of trouble. Listen, women are allowed more chances to lose their cool, to lose control of their emotions. Men aren't allowed those many chances. You don't have as many chances as a woman to lose your cool. It's much less forgiving. So you best learn how to always keep it. Ah, boy, I hear analyzing my childhood here too. It's true, but I'm telling you, I've been a teacher for a while now. There are certain things you could spend time with a student, and after spending time with the student alone, you could ascertain many things about their family situation just from how the student interacts with people. See how they interact with male teachers. See how they interact with female teachers. See how they take insults. See how they give insults. See if they're a bully. See if they stand up to bullies. See if they stand up to bullies on behalf of somebody else. Many of those things tell you a lot. Because the ramifications are more severe. Yes, they are. The question going through these young men's minds is, are these people disciplining me out of love? No, that is not the question. J. King, that is not the question. J. King, not the question. How does it, does the military exude love when they're disciplining their soldiers? When Al Qaeda was in the Haiti and having suicide bombers running with bombs strapped to their chest, that level of discipline, because that's discipline. Was it love? Did they love these people into blowing themselves up? Does the military love the Marines into becoming elite soldiers? What are you talking about? I never realized as you get older, childhood trauma shapes how you become an adult. It sure does. 100%. And that's why the 20s are so important. It's that bridge between the childhood and the adulthood where you're supposed to be packaging and sorting things out. The trauma, you're supposed to work that out to figure out how it becomes a stepping stone instead of a stumbling block. Ooh, big line there. But yes, that's what your 20s are for. All right, any further comments or questions, people?
That's all you need to forget. The launching My Lot for Girls, very excellent initiative.
Mm-hmm.
To see is that full military secondary school system, with either they live in or they come in accommodation, and a My Lot branch in Tobago. Kudos to the minister, whoever it is responsible for launching a female wing of the My Lot. And as soon as that developed, because they seem to be listening to our conversations and sharing snippets and clippings of conversations, which is very good. So the next phase, Mr. Minister, sir, branch in Tobago for Tobago operation, so we had to send these troublesome individuals down to Trinidad.
Agreed.
Good night, guys. Be mindful and not mindless. Look out for the t-shirts coming soon.
Yes, man. Yes, man. And I agree with that. There needs to be My Lot for the girls. There's an increasing trend of female indiscipline, especially in secondary schools too. You know what's one of the difficult things with dealing with that on the female side? I think what a lot of those girls lack is the same thing I think a lot of the boys lack. They lack that male parenting oversight too. So My Lot for females, for girls, I think is supposed to still be probably a lot male-led, but putting young girls in the total care of men in a military setting, staying over, that could create for some complications too. So that I hope they have a really good formula for how they are going to run that My Lot for girls, because I really do think it is a necessary thing. It is something that is needed in our society. All right, people, as per usual, I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer. This was the Mindful Life, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the Thursday Talks Jump in, where, you know, we just discuss, talk about whatever the live has to talk about. You could join just like Positive joined earlier there, and discuss. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, hold it down. Stay well. Peace out. Laters. Bye.